this is the future. I want to be part of it.
This is Diana Chen. She quit her job as an attorney, going full-time into podcast creation for others until she decided that it was about time to launch her own podcast DAO, Rehash, in which she talks to founders, developers, and executives within the Web3 space.
And as a content creator, I think all we want is to own our own content.
Diana, I think a lot of people at a later life point regret career decisions they made when they were younger. Now, you made the leap. What factors pushed you to make this choice?
It really all happened by chance. So the Matt Golds, the CEO of Unstoppable Domains, found us, started telling me about crypto and decentralization. And what really hooked me initially was when he started explaining what Web3 would do for content creators. And artists and musicians and any kind of creative still didn't understand very much about all of this at the time. But I felt like I understood enough to know that this is the future and I want to be part of it.
Looking back, it seems like a smart choice with Diana having successfully launched her first podcast DAO for her own show, Rehash. And while many are familiar with profile picture NFTs and other creative ways to utilize NFTs, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about the tokenization of podcasts. So I was curious, how did that come into existence?
You know, I've been podcasting in the space ever since I started working in the space. And by the time I started Rehash, I had recorded about 150 episodes, podcast episodes on Web3 and crypto topics. And I was thinking, and I was like, I've been doing this for other people this whole time. I have nothing that I own that like I can show for that really belongs to me. And as a content creator, I think all we want is to own our own content. So I was thinking like I should make my own podcast and really like start building that up for myself since I've done so many already. And then on the other side of it was that I had been heads down working in like DAO things for the last 6 months before starting Rehash. And I really wanted to build a DAO or a community of sorts of more like marketing or media or content people in Web3, because there aren't that many of us still. Like a lot of people in the space are still technical people. There's not that many non-technical people. So then I thought, well, how can I combine these two ideas and these two desires of mine into one? And that's how this idea for a podcast DAO came about.
Now, as Diana just mentioned DAOs, everybody's talking about them, how they could change the future of work. And it is often heard that companies, especially startups, can learn a lot from the fundamentals a DAO is built on. But let's ask the question the other way around. Is there anything DAOs can actually learn from corporate?
I think really what DAOs can learn from companies is that organizational structure. And I'm not talking about the hierarchy that exists in traditional corporate life, but really just like the processes that companies have developed over the years, over the decades. There's a reason these processes were developed. You know, there were really smart people that worked on business operations and came to these conclusions. And I think DAOs should be not so quick to just dismiss them as like, oh, this is like what, you know, big companies do, and so we're not going to do that. But really to like learn, like study that and how they can adapt it for DAOs. Because right now DAOs are all pretty chaotic.
Okay, let's say I want to get deeply involved in DAOs. I have heard of them, I think it's really interesting, but I have no clue where to start. How can I get involved?
If you want to quit your 9-to-5 because you want to work for DAOs, start getting into some DAOs, like jump into some Discords now while you still have your job. For the most part, anybody can kind of just enter into a DAO, identify what needs to be done in the DAO, how that fits with their skill sets, and start contributing. And I think that's super powerful. I think another cool thing about that is that it eliminates the sort of like need to have an impressive background. And so in a DAO, like no one asks to see your CV. No one asks, you know, where did you go to school? No one cares if you went to Harvard or whether you went to your local community college or whether you didn't go to college at all. As long as you have things to contribute, that's all that matters. And I think that is really, really a powerful thing that DAOs have enabled, is it's allowed more people to find meaningful work and good paying work.
I don't like my job, and I don't think I'm going to go anymore.
So by the time you actually quit your 9-to-5 job, you know what you're doing and you're ready to take on that new future.
Next to DAOs, Diana and I are also keeping a close eye on fashion NFTs as an emerging trend, as more and more fashion brands are announcing the implementation or have already dropped their first collection.
Yeah, actually, I first started learning about fashion NFTs from Emma J. McKinnon Lee. She's working on a project called Digital X. And she helps me understand fashion NFTs from, I think, a perspective that I wasn't thinking about it before. Usually when I hear fashion, or I think when most people hear fashion, they think like high fashion, they think, runway, they think things like that. But really, like, what fashion is just, and it also encapsulates just your style. It's like what you wear every day, the clothes that you wear. You might not think you're super fashionable, but it all is encapsulated in fashion. It's your style. And so when we think about like the future, where we might have our own avatar that's walking around in the metaverse, we're not just gonna want to be these naked avatars, forever. I think it's gonna blow up in the future. Like, people there's gonna be a high demand for this when our digital avatars become a bigger part of our lives, and people will want to express themselves that way. Like, maybe I'll want to buy a pair of Air Force Ones for my digital avatar because that's what I wear around all day. Like, I'll want to like match my digital avatar to my physical self. And I think that's just like a really fun thing that maybe some people aren't thinking about yet.
One of the reasons fashion NFTs perhaps are still in the shadows is because the space is still dominated by men. What do you think needs to change to onboard a more diverse group of users to Web3, and why is this so important?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think that's what's held back fashion NFTs up till now, but I'm starting to see more and more women in Web3. I see them all the time. I really try to make a conscious effort to like follow them on Twitter and to invite them onto the podcast. That's actually one of the core values that I set out when I launched Rehash, like the new podcast I'm working on now, is one of our core values is diversity. We want to hear from diverse voices because we don't want to make the same mistake we made with Web 2, where we turn all of this into Silicon Valley one more time. Like, we've been there, done that, like, realized that was not the good thing. And so if we're saying that we want to build a Web 3 that benefits everyone, like all people from all backgrounds and all over the world, then we have to first of all understand what their needs are.
Next to onboarding a broader audience, there's something else Diana considers relevant in order to grow the space to a larger scale.
What you see a lot of in Web3 is, 2 or 3 developers coming together with an idea, and they start coding and they start building out this cool product, but they have no idea about marketing. They have no idea about content. And so either like one of two things happens. Either one, they think, oh, we've got to hire somebody on to do marketing and content, but they don't know how to hire a marketing person. It's like if you asked me to hire an engineer, I would have no idea. And then 2, like if they decide that's too hard for them and they don't want to focus on it, then they just ignore marketing and they don't do any marketing for like the first 1 or 2 years of their company. And so that's a lot of missed opportunity.
Okay, after making the career leap yourself, do you have any advice for any others considering doing the same?
Do it. Just do it. Yeah. No, but like really, I think that that's a big decision, right? Like, it does take guts to do something like that. And you want to make sure you're doing it responsibly as well. Like, I think, some people will hear my story and like comment on it and say like, wow, you must just be a risk taker. And
that seems risky.
You have so many guts to like do all of this. And I would say that's partly true. Like, I do think I'm not as scared of risk as some people, but I also do try to take very calculated risks. So, like quitting my job at the time, like I had some money saved up. I knew that I could probably figure it out. I could always go back to Chicago and be a lawyer again if all else fails, so I wouldn't have to be homeless. So I would just say, if you're thinking about quitting your 9-to-5 job, then start planning for that.
And what about content creators? So how can they start experimenting and, more importantly, start getting involved in Web3?
So I would say just don't be afraid to put yourself out there and learn in public, and then start creating content and be honest about your journey. People like following somebody's journey, right? It's like when you watch movies or TV shows that you like you want to see growth in characters. That is like kind of like 101 in, acting or movies or whatever. And so for people to be able to follow your growth and see growth in a real human being that they're following, I think is really powerful.
If you enjoyed this video and are keen to learn more about the beautiful and innovative minds working in Web3, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment. Is there anything holding you back from making the leap?